Be more grind, rise, shine through the struggle. Black dollar circulate, flexing muscle. Politics and biz building walls like bricks. Motown soul rap mixed in the fix. Tiny cover spitting truth, microphone holder. Past the noise scene, watch growth in the folder. Black biz bright spotlight in the dark. Hustling hard, lighting sparks in the park. Be more new, where we breaking glass ceilings. All black every day, income healing. Doni Glover, flip the script. Let's go, Black Wall Street roadmap. Be more flow, real talk, stock rise. Dreams ain't looking hollow. Blueprints, handshakes, enemies wallow. Baltimore kings, queens, crown on the throne. Legacy built, stone by stone. Headlines, deadlines, moves in the background. Politics, money clips, elevate the town. Black beard strategist, wealth can't be missed. Twist the plot, make the whole world twist. Be more news, success we inhaling. Victories, IRS, no detailing. Doni Glover, rise to shine, let's glow. Focused on
Our GDP is $23 trillion. 23
Be more grind, rise, shine through the struggle. Black dollar circulate, flexing muscle. Politics and biz building walls like bricks. Spitting truth, microphone holder. Past the noise scene, watch growth in the...
First name's Doni, last name's Glover, in it to win it for the long haul, baby. Today is the last day of Women's History Month, and so we're going to talk with Dr. Trusty. Good morning, Dr. Trusty. How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
What you a doctor of?
I have my doctorate in sociology with a concentration in race, class, and gender inequalities. And so I walk around just understanding how our race, our class, and our socioeconomic status influences the way we experience life, do relationships, and show up.
Life, you said a PhD in sociology and race and class.
Race, class, and gender inequalities. That was my focus studies.
Race, class, gender inequalities.
Yeah.
Well, what was your dissertation on?
I looked at the attitudes and strategies of resilience for former teenage moms who obtained college degrees with a focus on African American women who had children during their teenage years and was still able to go on to college and experience upward mobility. My desire was to challenge the narrative that having a child as a teenager puts you on a downward trajectory.
And what'd you find?
Oh, I found, of course, I knew before I started because I was a teenage mom. I found that while becoming a teenage mom is an absolute challenge, that with the right support and family and social structures and access to opportunity and resources, then you can do whatever it is you want to do with your life. And so I learned that, for all of these women, and it was a multi-state research project, I had women from the age of 21 to 65. And they were in government, they were in corporate America, they were in education. And when you talk about the attitudes, because the research was on the attitudes, beliefs, and strategies of resilience. So I'll give one finding in each area. So the attitude of the mothers was, this is not how I planned it to be. I am going to do the best that I can to fix this decision by continuing my education and seeking gainful employment. So that was an attitude. The belief was that they can, that this was not the end of their story. It was one chapter of a lifetime of chapters, and that with the right attitude and consistency and belief in themselves, then they can land well. And then in terms of the strategies, it was really about the support systems that they had. And it was support systems from families, it was support systems from friends, and it was support systems from the school and, the Department of Social Services that would provide childcare services while those mothers went to college or to trade schools and things of that nature.
Did you find that some states were more conducive than others?
I found that some amongst the states that I was interacting with, and so it was Florida, Maryland, New York, and Delaware, and Georgia. Amongst those 5 states, there were absolutely variations, specifically in programs, right? Whether that was a childcare program in high school that allowed the new mother to bring their baby to high school to complete that portion of their education, whether that was with the Department of Social Services. Now, this is federally, but there was some differentiation in terms of how it was enforced on a local level. And I don't know if this applies now. I completed my doctorate in 2013, but at that time, if you were getting welfare, aka public assistance, they would not pay for childcare if you were pursuing a 4-year degree. They would only pay if you were pursuing an associate degree. And so the level of enforcement varied. And so for mothers that wanted to be nurses and they wanted to get their RN, their bachelor's in registered nursing first, it may have been somewhat of a setback for them to have to do the 2-year degree first. And so the level of enforcement varied. And then I would say those programs or access to opportunities impacted the support system. So if the family was the primary support system, the grandmothers or mothers' access to resources and opportunities would impact the level of support they were able to give the mother, be that financial support, childcare support, transportation support, stuff like that.
So, did you find some places were better than others?
That wasn't an investigation of my research initially. Right now, I have hundreds of pages of transcript and interview. My dissertation was 247 pages, but I was just simply looking at their attitudes, beliefs, and strategies of resilience. And so not going deeper into what the not qualifying or quantifying the supports that they use, just identifying them as my first wave of research. So I didn't really dive into that component.
So what findings what did you get out of it?
Oh, I got a lot out of it. And I think academia as a whole got a lot of it. Again, it just really sought to offer up account. Oh, that's Siri. You know how, I don't know what word I said to trigger her. It was really able to offer up a counter narrative and somewhat of a blueprint to the possibilities for pregnant and parenting teens that while becoming a parent in your teenage years is a very costly decision. It is not one that guarantees you a life of poverty or subexistence or a lack of education. And so it really provided evidence and even some policy instructions on the supports and the systems that are needed to ensure that more pregnant and parenting teenagers can go on to lead successful lives and contribute to society.
Now, considering you're from New York, New York was the first state to abolish slavery. And one could argue that, say, comparing New York to Georgia, where Georgia has historically been in a race for the bottom in terms of public education, that maybe a single mother would have a better chance in New York than Georgia.
So one could argue that, and I would have data to be able to explore that argument. So I would say that my research wasn't in that at that time
Wasn't
about
looking
place
by state.
based. It was simply pulling out the details and telling the story of these women, and even where they ended up was random. I posted and recruited via Facebook and friends. Facebook was the thing there. Instagram hadn't really gotten here yet. And so even who I ended up with and where they were was random. But there's definitely the opportunity to go back and do that dive. It's just not the dive I did initially.
Would you say that teenage pregnancy is among the top obstacles facing Black females in America?
I wouldn't say that, but I'll preference my response by saying I wouldn't call myself an expert in the top issues that are facing Black America. But in terms of teenage pregnancies specifically, those numbers are actually been going down for years. And the volume of not just programs, but all of there's different avenues for success now in abundance than there was when I had my daughter at 17. Now women, especially Black women, are really growing in their entrepreneurial endeavors. And then they're understanding that the world can be a blank canvas and that they can leverage a lot of the skill sets that they used to just do in the neighborhood, whether that's their friends here, nails, and this is just a few examples: nails, eyelashes, just your ability to be strategic planners and how you run your home and decorating. You see now that they're able to transfer those into businesses, whether it's in their home, written booths, pushing that into real estate. And so I think that one, the epidemic of teenage pregnancy, those numbers have been decreasing steadily over years. But two, we've discovered and created, because we are very innovative people, so many other avenues of to gain finances and to make a living, that there are just more opportunities now.
So we alluded to New York. You're a native New Yorker?
Born and raised. It is the best part of me. I moved to Maryland 20 years ago. And so I was for the most part, I got all my degrees in New York, except for my doctorate. And I'm third generation New York City, same city, Far Rockaway, Queens. Me and both my children were born in the same hospital. So yeah, New York is the best part of me. It raised me.
But you're here in Maryland, though.
I am here in Maryland. I'm representing Maryland. I love Maryland. And I will end up being in Maryland for as long as I was in New York at some point. So
what challenges do face the Black female in America, the young Black female. And I only say that because in my mind, the big challenge facing young Black teenage men is mass incarceration. Either you have a purpose, or you're either working your way towards something, or you're throwing bricks at the penitentiary.
Yeah. I think mass incarceration affects women too, by way of
Black women are the fastest growing demographic.
Yes, exactly. You know, I don't feel too comfortable speaking generally on the challenges that are facing Black women in America. I feel more comfortable narrowing that down to what I see as the realities of challenges facing me as a Black woman, and the Black women in my sphere, the Black women in my family, the Black women in my church, the Black women that I call friends.
Okay, what do y'all face?
Oh, wow. So I think parenting is a big one, and I mean, whether it is single parenting, whether it is just the realities and the emotional capital of parenting a Black male. You know, I have a son who is 22 years old, and you know, he left for college 3 years ago, and he's actually a senior now. But you know, realizing that he started at a small school in Pennsylvania, and that was very nerve-wracking for me. I wasn't worried about him academically. I was worried about him socially. And then he transferred to a school in New Jersey. And most of my friends, we have college age children at this point, most of them boys. And one of the things that keep us up at night is the safety, the social safety of our sons. And so I think parenting, again, whether it's about single parenting, whether it's about the safety of your children out in the world and the realities of racial profiling and discrimination and domestic terrorism now, dating and marriage. So I would say 50% of my circle is married and 50% of them are single. And the 50% that are married are struggling in their marriage, and the 50% that are single are struggling in their singleness. When you talk about the raising capital of Black women, when you talk about Black women being amongst the most highly educated, just reading an article in the New York Times talking about Howard University and the fact that only 25%, don't quote me, but it's below 25% of the students are male, and among that 25%, let's just say 19% are Black male, right? And so when you have women, these highly educated, highly employed women who are leaders at work and in the community and the household, dealing with men being educated at lower rates, or having to fight the criminal justice system, or having to fight discrimination on a job and lower pay wages, then it is how do we create a union where we can equally nurture and financially carry our households.
So as you're talking, the glaring statistic that jumps out is that we have 70% single mother households. So that means that we're less married than, say, in the 1940s, the 1950s, when we were the most married.
Yeah.
And everybody knows 2 incomes are better than 1.
Yeah. And and even past incomes, you know, as someone who I had my daughter as a teenager, and so I was not married when I had her, but when I had my son, I was. Even past the finances, the ability to do life with a solid partner, the ability to be able to process challenges, decisions, to you're built in life. And so whether it's, you know, how many different colors you want your new house to be, or what high school or middle school you want your son to go to, the ability to have someone sound to bounce though that processing off of, and to make have shared ownership and shared accountability is something that I will say I took for granted. Like, life is a lot to do on your own, period. So
So what lessons can we draw from that?
what lessons can we draw from what? From what in particular?
From life for young Blacks in America.
Hmm. I'm not understanding your question.
What advice can you give your children?
What advice do I give my children, right? So I have a 34-year-old daughter and a 22-year-old son. And in fact, we have family check-ins once a month. Yesterday happened to be our check-in. We do it on FaceTime. What advice am I giving them? I'm always giving them advice, but just in terms of yeah, that's a really broad question, Doni. I'm not sure it will connect to what we're talking about, but
Okay.
I'll tell you what my priority principles are with them. One is that they are unapologetically committed to themselves and the Black community. Right now, what that means for my daughter and what that means for my son is very different, but that they are unapologetically committed to themselves and to the Black community, that they realize that all of their time, talent, and resources are needed in our community, whether that's personally, professionally. You know, I'm really proud of my son. My daughter and I both went to education. My son is leaning on entrepreneurship, and we are meeting bi-weekly to talk about different businesses. We're actually looking at franchising. And so trying to show him what I didn't learn, which is like that he has everything that he needs. And then once he gathers that together, he needs to take it to our community so that he can serve, support, and even employ our community. And then the last thing is that they are enough. You know, I feel like we get so many different messages in so many different ways, especially with this new administration, that could easily have us challenging our value as a people. But, you know, we are the most talented and resourceful and creative and just brilliant people on the planet. And so I want them to never forget that. And everything else just comes from that.
Mm-hmm. You went to Africa recently.
I did, talking about Black brilliance. I went to West Africa. I went to Ghana, and it was absolutely amazing. It was my first time on the continent, and I cannot wait to go back. We're already talking about when we're going back.
It's interesting to me because so many of us are talking about going to all of these other places.
Yeah.
Not Africa, Al-Kebulon, Ethiopia, the land of Kush. So much of our perception of the motherland is shaped by Western narrative.
Yeah.
Like there are no buildings in Africa. Like there are no highways, no cars.
Yeah. Well, that's
there's a white guy swinging through the jungle on a rope.
That's Tarzan. I remember him. I remember him. Listen, Well, that couldn't be far from the truth, further from the truth. And I also think when we talk about our people and class, I think that the realities of the continent of Africa are creeping up. There are, like, as I was looking to plan my trip, I came across, I'm gonna say, at least 5 different Black-led groups, whether they were travel agents or actually groups from different areas. New York had a group where they're just bringing people together and curating trips to Africa, to different parts of Africa. So I think I see it coming. In fact, I think that influenced my ability to prioritize and go to Africa, because I'm guilty of having a bucket list of the places that I want to go to and experience and shop. But I realized that before I go to any of these other places, I need to prioritize going back home first. And so I think I think we're getting better in that area. Um, and it was absolutely the experience of a lifetime for me. Like, the realities of being in a space and in places where everybody looks like me, other than Baltimore, honestly, where there was, when I first got to Baltimore in like 2011, where there was so much Black leadership in a space, coming from New York, that wasn't the case growing up in New York. There's some changes now, but that wasn't the case in abundance in the way it was in Baltimore City. So believe it or not, for me, just traveling a little bit south from New York, Baltimore was like one of the first places where I saw an abundance of Black leadership. So the school system, the mayor, the police commissioner, on that level. And then going to Ghana, where everything and everyone looks like me, was so fulfilling. It was very fulfilling.
That's interesting, because when I think of New York, you're from Brooklyn?
Queens.
Queens. Now, Queens is where your upwardly mobile Blacks live.
Portions of Queens.
More,
Portions of Queens, not Far Rockaway, Queens. Well, you know what? It's changing now. But no, when I grew up in Far Rockaway, in fact, when I did my dissertation, again, I started in 2011, 2012, the median income of Far Rockaway, Queens, where I was born and raised, was $38,000 a year. That was the median income just 12 years ago, 13 years ago. So there are parts of Jamaica, Queens, Hollis, Queens, South Ozone Park. There are parts of Queens that are very upwardly mobile, but not all of them.
You're working against me. Now, I thought Queens had such influence on the hip hop industry.
Oh, they do. They did, absolutely. They did. Lost Boys, LL Cool J, Run DMC. They did. But what was the origins of hip hop, and what were they talking about? They were talking about the struggles. They were talking about being in the hood. They were talking about, police brutality and harassment. They were talking about just social ills that came from being a part of disenfranchised systems. They weren't rapping about upward mobility. So that tracks, right?
Now, Baltimore is 65% Black.
Yeah. And look, and because this is all relative, right? It's about where you're coming from and what you're used to seeing, right? So I came into Baltimore by way of Baltimore City Public Schools, right? And there was we got a Black superintendent. Again, the police commissioner was Black. The person overseeing the police functions and city schools, but more than half of the principals were Black. I was in education in New York. That was not the case. You know, the mayor was Black, and so again, coming from New York, that was very new for me and exciting in a lot of ways, but also shocking in other ways.
And then there's Newark. I mean, growing up, did you hear a lot of stories about Newark?
No, not at all. In fact, you know, even though Jersey is right there, there are there are pathways. People work in Jersey and live in New York and
Vice versa.
I actually did not go to New York Jersey, ever as a child, ever as a teenager. My first venture into Jersey was well into my yeah.
So see, we assume certain things that you're up there in New York, you got Queens there, Brooklyn here, Long Island, Manhattan, Harlem. Just figure that it's all right in there. Because I'm thinking from a Baltimore standpoint,
You are.
you won't catch me just in West Baltimore.
But now there are Baltimoreans that just stay in there.
Oh yeah, you got Baltimoreans who do not move outside of a 3 square block radius.
Yeah, exactly.
East, west, north, south.
And so that is
y'all got trains. You got trains.
Oh, we have the
you can just get on the train.
Listen, that was one of the things that I took for granted living in New York, you know, being raised with a mass transit system where
you got a real train system. We don't even have a train.
I didn't really appreciate the meaning of mass until I moved to the DMV area, because in New York, there are at least 3 different routes on the subway or bus or a combination to get to any destination. You pay one fare you could be on the train for 14 hours with one fare.
Baltimore has the dumbest subway system in the world.
Well, you know, you can feel credentialed to say that. I would say that. I will say this.
It goes from downtown to Northwest Baltimore County. One route.
I started working in DC when I first moved here, and I lived in Prince George's County though. And so taking the train to and from work was so interesting because the system is not as mass as New York, where there's all these interconnections and they cross paths, and the trains cross paths in a way that they did. When I got to DC, I would literally I'll be on one color line and pass the stop that I needed to get off at, like literally just see my stop pass to get on another train to go back to that station. In New York, you just wouldn't have to do that. There would be a way, again, because it's so massive, for you to deboard one train, one stop before your desired destination, get on a train or a bus, one stop, and then get off. But that defined the mass of our mass transportation system. Baltimore, now, you guys, I used to take a train. I think it's the light rail, right? Is that what you guys have? The light rail?
You have a light rail above ground.
Yep. I took that for about 6 months. But
I'm sure there's some people on the short yellow bus designed this system, because it is absolutely third gradish at best.
But look,
it fits right into the storyline to use your word, the narrative of segregation.
Say more about that.
Baltimore is the home of segregation,
Mm-hmm.
of redlining, going back to 1910.
Mm-hmm.
Blacks couldn't move in the white neighborhoods, whites couldn't move in the black neighborhoods.
And so is the correlation you're making that the limitations of the rail system,
because racists designed it, and racists are innately stupid.
Oh, see. I was going.
I mean, I don't know what else you call it. If you can't call it mass transportation, that's a group segregation. If anything, yeah, racists are pretty stupid. I mean, look at this president. Who picks a fight with Canada? Canada's like the little special kid at the end of the block, got their little Sunday outfit on, ain't messing with nobody, got their little lunchbox. And you over there messing with Canada. You punched Canada, and then Canada fired back and did some jujitsu on you. And now you all looking messed up, your arm in a sling, because you went over there messing with little Canada. Canada, nice little kid, ain't bother nobody.
I won't disagree with you. I won't disagree with you. There's a lot.
You got an illegal an illegal alien, Elon Musk, making decisions in the White House. Do you have a passport? Are you legally an American, sir? Anyway, look, let's get to Africa. So you made it to Africa, and you said you got a bucket list. I am glad to hear. So what'd you learn? Was this your first time on the continent?
Yes.
Did you feel at home?
I absolutely felt at home. I felt seen. I felt like I belong. Just literally just getting off the airplane. And people warned me that I would have that feeling, and I couldn't imagine why I would feel so comfortable. Like, it just didn't make sense hearing it, but everyone who went told me that was the experience, and it was the absolute truth.
You said you went days without seeing white people or even light-skinned people.
I did. I went. So, and look,
and I'm not cracking. I'm not cracking. I'm just putting it out there because in the pre-interview, it struck my mind how race conscious, how complexion conscious America has made us.
That's exactly where
we know that the San Bushmen in Southern Africa are not the darkest. They have the oldest DNA on Earth, but they are not the darkest of Africans genetically.
That's exactly
but
where
America, black is back, white is right, tan is grand. Excuse me. America has done a number on us going back to the plantation. And it's not all true.
Of course it isn't. Of course it isn't.
America has really done a number on us, and it's done a number on itself, because we then judge and grade people based on what they look. You're dark skinned, so you can fight. You light skinned, that means you're gonna get your butt whipped, and that's not necessarily so. You can be dark skinned and scared to death.
Of course.
You can be light skinned and put fear in everybody's heart because they know that you don't play. Exactly. So I grew up in a house where my mama was light, my daddy was dark, and that's just what it was. You were judged on your performance.
Yeah. So that's one of the things, what you're talking about, just how we as Black people, I would say, are so trained unconsciously, I think, to recognize, well, I don't know if unconscious is right. Whereas we've been trained to recognize who's in the room, what's their relationship to us in terms of race or hue. And I think, what does that mean for how I'm supposed to show up in this place? and that has absolutely been my experience, especially, professionally. And so going to a country where that's one of the first things I realized. So I probably didn't see, well, so total, this is how crazy it was to me that I could count them. I can count the non-people of color that I ran into over an 11-day period, because I'm just so not used to seeing such an abundance of people of color in the search.
All black everything.
All black everything. All black everything. And so that's what I shared with you, that I saw 8 non-people of color during my entire time in Ghana, and 6 of them were tourists. And so they were at a museum or something with me, with a group. So I only saw 2 non-people of color that appeared to be residents of the continent, which is unheard of for the life that I've lived.
I gotta tell you, it brings to mind Uganda. I don't know if you know the story of Idi Amin.
I don't.
There was a movie about Idi Amin, but as he took power, he put the Europeans out, gave them like 24 hours. Get out. Get out. So what you're seeing with Trump, with the El Salvadorans and Chinese immigrants at the University of Maryland, who's supposed to be involved in espionage and what have you. Idi Amin, we've seen it in South Africa, where white farmers, that's where Elon Musk people went to from the Netherlands. They went there to steal the gold, actually the diamonds in the land. But yeah, we've seen it. We've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
But Idi Amin said, "You got to go. Get out."
So
Now,
listen, so we had this amazing tour guide. He is actually, born and raised in Ghana. He has so much pride. He's a historian. He reminds me of you. And he's so territorial of Ghana. And he's been doing tours for 23 years. And he's one of the people that connects to different groups in the States, and you work directly with him. And so, I asked him, because again, not only did I not see a lot of non-people of color, I actually didn't see a lot of light-skinned people, light-skinned Blacks. I didn't see a lot. And so I asked him why that was the case, because, we come in a lot of hues. I didn't see the abundance of hues that I see here. And he shared that when they gained independence from the British, they pushed out all of the interracial families, that they had those men and women leave the country. And so those interracial unions have eventually died out. They've had their independence for 67 years. And that was
ethnic cleansing.
Yeah. Yeah, in a way that we're not used to seeing it done, though, right? Like by us. And so so again, it showed me how race conscious I was raised, though, right? And I don't walk around America.
It's not your fault. This is what you've been put into. This is the matrix you were born into. We got to get to the slave castle.
Yeah, we can.
Did you cry?
I didn't cry, but I was unique in that I didn't cry. So I was actually pre-warned that morning that day was going to be heavy, because we were visiting the slave castle. And I was just prepared. I wasn't told all that it was, but just listen, today's going to be heavy. History is what it is. And so just prepare yourself. And look, there was a lot of tears when you get to the slave castle. You see dungeon, you see the small crawl spaces that they shoved 100 and 200 women in. This, one rectangular box that was their sleep space, their lodging, their toilet, their tables. Like you see it, you see the darkness, and they take you to do the different stages. You see the male slave quarters, and the female is still rank. You even see where the women are put outside into this like kind of, I'm gonna say an atrium for the lack of better word. They said what it was, but I can't recall. And the Europeans and their men are looking down at the different beautiful Black women and picking the ones that they want. And then they showed us the route that those women would then have to go to be bathed and prepared to be raped, and the steps that they had to go through that led right into the men's room or what have you. And so there was a lot of tears. There were letters from Europeans and from different white groups apologizing for their contribution. But for me,
I got African involvement was primary though.
African involvement was part of the conversation. So African involvement.
I mean, the first one responsible is the African
for governing themselves in a.
No white man sold us, a Black man sold us.
Well, what here was the context of it. And again, so you're way more of a historian than I am, but the initial context to that, and this was part of the very vibrant discussion between the tour guides at the castle and the historians that were in the group, was Africans began to sell slaves under the guise of what commerce was during that period, and not with the understanding of the transatlantic slave trade and what was going to ultimately happen to their African brothers and sisters. Now, there was
something, they were getting paid. I might have come up out of Ghana with somebody's gold throne. I might have had to get some reparations there on the spot.
They were getting.
I don't want to hear it all. This is stick up, just like Marvin Sapp.
You bring it up.
Everybody get up. That's what it is. Get up.
For me,
who thought Marvin Sapp would be doing stick ups?
When is Marvin? I didn't hear that Marvin Sapp is doing stick ups. How was Marvin Sapp? Oh,
never would have paid it.
Oh, close the door. You're calling that I'm not going there with you.
Never would have paid it.
I'm not doing that with you. So
Marvin Sapp said, "Close the doors of the church. Ain't nobody getting up out of here without dropping me this paper." That's a straight stick up. So, I wish I was there.
What you would have did, Doni?
I'd have put that tool in his side. Give me your money.
In Jesus' house. You doing that?
In Jesus' house.
Okay.
I'd have kicked over the money tables, and he'd have been the first one giving it up.
Oh, you would have played a Jesus on him. You would have turned over the tables.
We got to stop playing with God like that, man.
Well, I agree with that. Now, I'm not gonna really talk about what Marvin actually did, because we weren't.
He lost his damn mind. That's what he did.
We weren't there. But
they're pretty smiley if they're trying to defend him. Sometimes we got to know when wrong is wrong. Just sit down and shut up. At grandma's house, you can't argue with grandma. You cannot argue with Big Mama. She told you sit down and time out for a minute for a reason. Sometimes
parenting back in those days was a bit much. But listen, I do agree that we need to stop. We need to stop playing with Jesus. We need to stop playing with God, period. But I also think that we're reaping what we sow. We've been playing for a long time. Um,
And then too many churches have been playing. I'm just thinking about the sexual abuse. You hear the commercials from the Catholic Church to the Black Church of this sexual abuse, this
wait,
sexuality.
what do you mean?
The priest with 5 women on the front row. It's like
Wait, no. What do you mean to the Black church? We haven't the Black
the hypersexual mentality of some of these mega preachers. Like they can't handle this attention. You want a mega church, that means it's gonna be mega people. So you gotta be responsible.
Yeah, but don't you would you agree though that no? So I totally agree with that. But we are in such a hyper sexualized society right now.
We play a role in it. Ain't nobody making us get on TikTok and dress naked. Then Felicia Rashad says something like, put your clothes on, or Monica say, take them damn bonnets off your hair, and then we want to get real white all of a sudden. I can do what I want. I'm a feminist. I can do this, I can do that. Like we have no regard for the struggle our people took to get here. We have no knowledge of the efforts of Annie Malone. Annie Malone was Madam C.J. Walker's mentor, who gave Black women back their pride and love of self-beauty, despite the damage that had been done through the slave trade. I don't know. That's just me.
No, look, I agree. I don't know who the we is though, right? Because when you so even in this ridiculously sexual exploitive culture, the supply is just meeting the demand, right? So where's the demand coming from? Right? Like in this world where women are enhancing their butts and their breasts and getting the guts pulled out of their stomach.
Media.
We're not doing that for
media.
Ourselves. We're not.
Media. Some people don't know why they're doing it.
No, they know.
Because the Black men that I know like natural. But somebody has placed it in.
I don't see no men covering their eyes when it's not natural. I don't hear no men.
If that's what you want to get from it, maybe you should ask them.
I do. Because,
okay, well, it's going to fall when what goes up will come down. So they can shoot all of the injections they want, but at some point, that thing is going to fall. Gravity will win in the end. And then look at these actors, 80 years old, and they still getting plastic surgery. The evidence is right there. I mean, everybody has told you Black don't crack, but no. And then I saw this white girl doing the weather. Her lips were so big. She had really, really big lips. I mean, they were bigger than African lips.
They get the fillers. Now, look, I think what non-Black people are doing
they're getting tans. They want to look like us.
I think that's different from what we were talking about in terms of the women, Black women, and Black men, and supply is just meet and demand. Because I actually am really disheartened by the realities of where the standards are now in terms of what beauty is in a Black woman.
Media. Look at media. Media paints it going down to fashion. When you think of fashion, you think of typically gay white designers who set the mode of what fashion is. in today's society.
There's a whole nother train of thought that Blackness, the Black culture and Black artists and Black entertainers are setting the fashion standards. But
quite often they're getting their information from somewhere else.
Yeah, to me though, fashion.
Look at the pants that men wear today. Look at the pants.
Mm-hmm.
A black man, a heterosexual black man is not designing those pants.
I don't know.
These are more feminine than ever before. And it's like, damn, there's barely any space for your stuff. I mean,
I was just at a birthday party yesterday with the birthday man. He turned 51, and that was one of his complaints, that he was trying to get a suit for his celebration. And he was so frustrated with the tailors and what they are used to, how they're used to fitting.
They've been Europeanized and Asianized. Those people don't have the butts, first of all, that the typical black person has. Period. End of story. So when they put it on this mannequin, it's a flat butt. And we don't have flat butts.
Mm-hmm. The mannequins are thick now. Even the mannequins, I don't know when this started.
Maybe thick, but we have roundness that white people and Asians stereotypically do not have. Just like our lips, we have full lips stereotypically.
Mm-hmm.
Kleptoid, negroid. Yeah. That's why when you look at those Olmec heads in Mexico and you see that kleptoid nose, you know how black people look when we flare our nose. You can't say it's Mexican. It's not Mexican.
Oh, you're so funny, Doni.
It's African. Or Alkebulan, Ethiopian, Kush, because Africanus we know is a Roman term. Mm. But at least you went to Africa and you learned something about our people. And I'm really glad. I wish more of us had a desire. Are you going back?
Of course I'm going back. We've decided, I went with my daughter, we've decided that every other year we're going back to the continent.
I don't hear that, and I wanted our people to hear that.
Absolutely.
That your family has made a commitment.
Oh, we made
to go to Africa every 2 years. That is so refreshing.
Absolutely. And one of the other things that I'm really excited about is that I requested, because I'm an educator, I requested tours to schools. I wanted to see a primary, a middle school, and a high school. And so they took us to these 3 different schools, and I partnered with the principal of it was what we would call a K-8 school. So it's an elementary and a middle school. And I'm going to help build their library. So he took us to the room that he called their library. And I was just like waiting for what I am used to seeing in terms of a library. And it was a nice size room with literally a 6-shelf IKEA bookcase with like 1 or 2 row of books. And I was like, oh, well, this is the whole library?
So what was this? What was going on with him? He didn't know where to get no books?
Resources.
Okay. Books started in Africa. I mean, was he slow?
No, of course not.
So let me just say, we do know, like in Timbuktu and some of the ancient cities, that our libraries were burned to the ground by invaders. And maybe he needs an Amazon card. We can send him some books that way. You know, I mean, we can do something. And you do have rich people.
Where?
In Ghana.
Oh yeah, you absolutely do have rich people. And look, there are local partnerships. There are even local organizations. We're in America. We're one of the richest countries in the land, and we still need support and funding.
It's the distribution of those resources.
Yes, he even showed they have a government, the government, and just like us with our congressmen, they had one individual that was really committed to bettering the conditions of schools there, and actually started building a wing on top of the existing infrastructure. Well, that individual lost the next race, and they had to halt that construction. And so you can go up there, and there's 3 classrooms, just the cement structure is just up there, and they are waiting for either a funder to come to finish that, or someone that is committed to development of schools to go back into office to be able to finish that project. So I'm really excited to be able to support that. It's a long-term partnership, and I would actually, we talked last Friday, we have another meeting this Friday. I would love to come back at some point to talk to you and to show you what we're working to build out, to see what kind of support your audience might want to give to just build out this library for this elementary middle school.
Do they have internet access?
They do. They have internet access. In fact, my daughter bought tablets and donated them. She bought 9 tablets and donated them to the school. Yeah, they had internet access. Yeah.
Nobody gets a pass. Black, white, uptown, downtown, everybody's got to be accountable.
We should all be accountable. And we all have opportunity and obligations to do so.
Light skin, dark skin, none of that matter. Are you helping or are you hurting?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So how did the interview go, Dr. Trusty?
It was fine.
Anything you want to add?
No, thank you for allowing me to share.
That's it? Come on, BK. We're looking for some pizzazz up in here.
That's the pizzazz I have today.
Okay.
And I'm not BK. I'm Queens. I'm Far Rockaway.
My bad. My bad.
Far Rockaway, yes.
That's where Sheepshead Bay is?
Close, yes. Close,
Pretty
yes.
good seafood
That's
there.
it. Yeah, that's it's in close proximity. Good job on that.
Okay. My bad. My first place in New York is Brooklyn.
Yeah, that's where most people that they go there. You're from New York, from Brooklyn or Manhattan. Those are the first 2 thoughts. But it's okay. It's still New York, you know?
Yeah, it is. Dr. Trusty, thank you for joining us. How can people get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me through my organization, the Educators Empowerment Center. That's educatoремpowerment.org. Or you can email me at btrusty@educatoремpowerment.org.
Good deal. Thank you for joining us today. Good morning, world.